everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to explore one of the most heartwarming chapters in Tu Tieu and Uri's journey. A story filled with hope, forgiveness, and family love. After days of fear and uncertainty, their world is forever changed when the doctor reveals a beautiful miracle. Tu Tieu is carrying twins, a boy and a girl. And even more touching, the two mothers, Mrs. Lan and Mrs. Hua, once divided by pride and misunderstanding, find themselves united in joy as they both become grandmothers on the same day. If this emotional story warms your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next episodes. And please tell us where you're watching from, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your messages mean the world to us. Night gently blankets the small village, and the soft rustle of wind brushes through the flower pots by the window, each one budding, waiting to bloom. Inside the modest home, the air is still, filled with both sorrow and fragile hope. Tu Tieu sits quietly on the edge of the bed, one hand clutching her stomach, the other tracing invisible lines across the blanket. Her face is pale, but her eyes, though tired, still hold a flicker of light. Uri sits beside her, his hand covering hers. "You didn't sleep at all, did you?" he murmurs softly. She shakes her head, forcing a faint smile. "I keep feeling something," Tu Tieu whispers. "Not pain, just different. I can't explain it." Uri studies her face, his heart tightening. He remembers the doctor's last words, the uncertainty, the fear, but he refuses to let it take over. "Maybe it's just the baby moving again," he says, his voice trembling slightly. "Tomorrow we'll go for another checkup. Let's make sure everything's okay this time." Tu Tieu nods, and for a moment, silence fills the room. Gentle, no longer suffocating. Outside, the wind hums softly, carrying away the heaviness that once anchored their hearts. The flower pots sway, their buds beginning to open, as if sharing the couple's quiet hope. The next morning, the pale light of dawn spreads across the horizon. Uri stands by the car, glancing back at their home before opening the door for Tu Tieu. She steps out carefully, wearing a loose white dress, her hands resting protectively over her belly. The soft wind brushes through her hair, and for the first time in days, her lips curve into a fragile smile. "Are you ready?" Uri asks. Tu Tieu nods. "I think I have to be." The car starts, its gentle hum blending with the chirping of early birds. The village road stretches ahead, uneven but familiar. Uri drives slowly, stealing glances at her from time to time. Each glance tells a story of love and fear interwoven, two hearts praying for a sign of life. Tu Tieu looks out the window. The rice fields glisten with dew. Children chase each other by the roadside. She takes a deep breath. "You know," she says softly, maybe I shouldn't have lost hope so soon." Uri's hands tighten on the steering wheel. "You didn't lose hope," he says. "You just needed time to find it again." As they approach the clinic, Tu Tieu suddenly gasps. A sharp pain shoots through her abdomen. Her hand grips her stomach tightly. "Tu Tieu!" Uri's voice shakes as he pulls the car over. "What's wrong?" Her face twists in pain, cold sweat forming on her forehead. I don't know. It hurts." Uri rushes out, opening her door, his hands trembling as he supports her. "Hold on, please. We're almost there." But Tu Tieu's legs buckle. She collapses into his arms, her body limp, her eyes fluttering closed. Panic floods Uri's chest. "Tu Tieu, stay with me!" He scoops her into his arms and runs toward the clinic entrance. The nurses rush over, helping him place her on a stretcher. The hallway blurs with voices, footsteps, and the distant beeping of machines. Uri stands frozen by the door as the doctor hurries her into the emergency room. His heart pounds, his vision fading to white. He whispers to himself, "Please, please, not again." Time loses meaning. Uri paces the waiting area, his hands buried in his hair, lips moving in silent prayer. The clock ticks, each second stretching into eternity. Finally, the door opens. The doctor steps out, a gentle woman in her 40s with kind eyes behind her glasses. Uri rushes forward. "Doctor, please, how is she? Is she okay?" The doctor places a calming hand on his shoulder. "She's stable now," she says softly. "It was a fainting spell caused by low blood pressure. But..." Uri's heart races. "But what?" A slow smile spreads across the doctor's face. "You should come in and see for yourself." Inside, the room glows with soft morning light. Tu Tieu lies on the bed, her face calm, her breathing steady. The faint scent of antiseptic mixes with the warmth of sunlight filtering through the blinds. Uri steps closer, his throat tight. Her eyes slowly flutter open. "Uri," she whispers. He clasps her hand, tears already spilling down his cheeks. "You scared me half to death." She smiles weakly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Before he can speak, the doctor gestures toward the monitor beside the bed. "Look here," she says gently. "You might want to see this." Uri turns. On the ultrasound screen, two tiny shapes pulse in rhythmic motion. Two little heartbeats, glowing like twin stars. Tu Tieu gasps, her eyes widening. "Are those?" The doctor nods, smiling. "Yes, twins. A boy and a girl. Congratulations, your babies are both healthy." For a moment, everything stands still. The hum of machines fades, the world outside disappears. Only the soft sound of two heartbeats fills the air, strong, steady, alive. Tears stream down Tu Tieu's cheeks as she clasps Uri's hand. "Two of them. One boy, one girl," she whispers in disbelief. Uri can barely speak. His voice breaks. "Our little dragon and phoenix." Tu Tieu laughs through her tears, the sound fragile but full of life. "After everything we've been through, they chose to stay." Uri bends down, pressing his forehead against hers. "No," he says softly. "They chose you because you never gave up." The doctor quietly steps out, leaving the couple in their private moment of joy. The sunlight grows warmer, painting the room in gold. Uri kneels beside the bed, resting his hand over her stomach. "Can you hear them?" he murmurs. "They're saying, 'Mom, Dad, we're here.'" Tu Tieu laughs again, the sound breaking the silence that once held so much sorrow. She reaches out, cupping his face with her hand. "We're not alone anymore," she says. "Not ever again." Outside, the wind shifts, gentle, fragrant with the scent of flowers finally blooming. The buds in their garden seem to burst open all at once, as if celebrating the miracle inside that little room. The golden afternoon light spills gently across the hospital room, softening every edge, every shadow. Tu Tieu lies quietly against her pillow, her face pale yet radiant, eyes still glistening with tears that no longer come from grief, but from overwhelming joy. Beside her, Uri stands frozen in disbelief, his gaze locked on the ultrasound monitor where two tiny heartbeats flicker, steady, strong, alive. His throat tightens as he whispers, "I thought I'd lost everything, Tu Tieu. But now, it feels like the whole world just started over." Tu Tieu turns her head slightly toward him, her lips trembling. When I fainted, everything went dark. I felt like I was falling into a void. But then I heard two little voices, one soft and sweet, one gentle and brave, calling out to me, "Mom, don't go. We're here." Uri's eyes well with tears. "That wasn't a dream," he says softly. "That was them, holding on to you." She smiles faintly, placing his hand over her belly. "Then I'll never let go again." Uri bends down and kisses her forehead, his voice breaking. "You don't have to. We'll face everything together, this time as four." A few hours later, the sound of hurried footsteps echoes in the hallway. The door swings open, and Mrs. Hua, Uri's mother, rushes in, her shawl slipping from her shoulders, her eyes wide with worry. "Uri, Tu Tieu, what happened? Are you both all right?" she gasps, her voice trembling. Uri quickly moves to help her sit. "Mom, calm down. Everything's fine now. But..." He glances at Tu Tieu, smiling through tears. "We have something to tell you." Tu Tieu pushes herself up a little, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. "Mother," she says softly, "the doctor said, we're having twins, a boy and a girl." For a moment, Mrs. Hua freezes. Her lips part, but no words come out. Then, like sunlight breaking through clouds, her face lights up. "Twins?" she repeats, her voice rising with joy. "Oh, my dear heavens!" She covers her mouth, tears welling instantly as she rushes to Tu Tieu's side. "My sweet girl," she cries, "you've given this family the greatest blessing of all." Tu Tieu smiles through her tears. "Mother, thank you for being here, for always believing in us." Mrs. Hoa gently wipes her eyes. "It's you two who never gave up," she says. "You both fought through the storm and pain, and now life has rewarded your courage. One little prince and one little princess." Uri embraces both women, his heart full. "They're our miracle, Mom," he says. "After all that darkness, this is our light." Mrs. Hoa nods, placing a hand on his cheek. "Cherish it, Uri. Not everyone gets to see love reborn right before their eyes." Later that afternoon, the family returns home. The once quiet garden now bursts with color. Flower pots that had stood still through the long night now bloom in shades of white, pink, and yellow. The air carries the faint perfume of lilies, mingled with the warmth of sunlight. Tu Tieu sits beneath the shade of a tree, wrapped in a soft blanket. Uri kneels beside her, trimming fresh flowers for a vase. She watches him with a tender smile. "Do you remember," Tu Tieu says softly, "how we used to sit here dreaming about what kind of family we'd be someday?" Uri looks up, his eyes full of emotion. "I do. I remember every word. You wanted a little girl with my eyes, and I wanted a little boy with your smile." She laughs quietly. "Then heaven gave us both." Uri reaches for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I just want them to grow up knowing love. Not wealth, not power, just love. That's all that matters." Tu Tieu gazes at him with a warmth that makes her voice tremble. "If they have you as their father, they'll already know what love means." He smiles and kisses her hand. "And if they have you as their mother, they'll know what strength feels like." As the sun dips lower, Mrs. Lan, Tu Tieu's mother, arrives carrying a basket of fruit and a warm smile. The moment she sees her daughter, she hurries forward. "My darling child," she says, taking Tu Tieu's hands, "you scared me half to death when I got the call." Tu Tieu laughs softly, eyes bright. "I'm fine now, Mother, and I have good news." Mrs. Lan's brows lift. "Oh, what is it?" Uri stands proudly beside his wife. "You're going to be a grandmother, twice." Mrs. Lan blinks, startled. Twice? Twins, Tu Tieu says, smiling. A boy and a girl. For a moment, the older woman stands frozen. Then her face softens, and she pulls her daughter into her arms. "Oh, my sweet girl," she whispers, voice thick with emotion. "You've brought so much joy back into this family. Your father would be so proud if he could see you now." Tu Tieu closes her eyes, feeling the warmth of her mother's embrace. "I know he's watching," she says quietly. "Maybe he was the one who sent them to us." Mrs. Lan nods, wiping her tears. "Then we'll make sure these little ones grow up surrounded by love and laughter." Uri smiles. "That's all we want, Mother." As night approaches, the family gathers inside. Uri and Tu Tieu prepare a small space near the window, a corner filled with light where two tiny baby blankets wait. One is pale blue, the other soft pink. Tu Tieu smooths them gently, her touch tender and reverent. Uri wraps his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "They'll need a proper nursery soon," he whispers. She leans into him, smiling. "Let's build it together. I want it to be filled with laughter, music, and sunlight." He nods. "We'll call it the Happy Room." She giggles. "Then this house will finally become our happy home." Outside, the night sky stretches wide, scattered with stars that glimmer like distant candles. The wind moves softly through the garden, carrying the scent of blooming flowers into the house. Inside, Uri watches Tu Tieu as she drifts to sleep in his arms. He brushes a strand of hair from her face and whispers, "Thank you, life, for bringing her back to me, and for bringing them to us." He looks down at her belly, his voice tender. "My little dragon and my little phoenix, your dad can't wait to meet you." Tu Tieu stirs slightly in her sleep, a peaceful smile forming on her lips, as though she can hear him even in her dreams. And in that moment, surrounded by silence and starlight, everything feels whole. The pain, the fear, the sleepless nights, they've all transformed into something pure and luminous. A love that endures, a family reborn. Outside the window, the flower pots sway under the moonlight, their petals wide open, shimmering like small miracles. Once, they stood still in sorrow. Tonight, they bloom as witnesses to new life. Two tiny heartbeats that turn despair into hope, and hope into forever. Uri kisses Tu Tieu's forehead one last time and whispers, "Sleep well, my love. Tomorrow, we start our forever." The camera slowly pans out, their home glowing softly under the moon, the flowers in full bloom, the faint echo of laughter in the wind. The sound of two heartbeats lingers, like music promising a future filled with love.